Cool. Thanks for coming today. I know you all probably have better things to do on a Friday afternoon or evening. Yeah. Well, I don't. That's why I chose a Friday. But turns out people actually do have plans. But it is what it is. Maybe next year I might change it up. We'll see. Yeah, maybe Wednesday. Maybe Wednesday. Okay. So today we're going to go through what we can mill. Does anyone? I know you have CEREC. Does anyone else have a mill in their practices? Oh, you got the craft. Okay, fantastic. Great, great option. So yeah, we're going to go through a brief summary of what we can mill, in our clinics. I don't know why there's a 3D printer, images of 3D printers there. Probably use the same slide, beginning slide or first slide for some of my other presentations. But yeah, we're going to be basically focusing on mills and millable materials today. If you need to contact me, my details are there, my socials are there. Any design tutorials that you want to go through, they're probably going to be on my YouTube channel. So I've recorded a bunch. So yeah, you can follow or subscribe to my YouTube channel, and then you'll get a lot of I think there's a lot of good stuff in there anyway. Anyway, let's start. Some of you have been here or listened to my webinars or courses or presentations before. So I'm Dr. Andrew Ip. I'm a Sydney-based general dentist in private practice. I work across two practices, one in Para and one in Marsfield. And yeah, so I've been teaching, well, mainly 3D printing, but now kind of like starting to do a bit more on mills more recently for a number of years. And yeah, it's taken me all over the place. I was recently in Malaysia last month. I'll probably be back in Malaysia next year. And yeah, I was in the US in July. So that was really cool. But yeah, let's talk about millable materials, because that's way more important than what my stuff is. This is working. Okay, now it's working. Right. So what are we going to go through? We're going to basically go through, very briefly, what a mill is, what we can do with it. And then, of course, the meat of the topic today, we're going to go through what we can actually make with our mills, because there's no point getting a mill if we're not going to use it and make something out of it, right? We're going to go through a bit about, pucks versus blocks and some other things that we also need to consider when we're investing in a mill and when we're thinking about, milling certain materials. So it's not going to be a terribly long presentation like last time, but yeah, it should take about 45 minutes today. Right. So this is one of the videos on my YouTube channel. Basically, it's a very simple process of designing a customized abutment, and then the crown on top as well. All right, so I'm using ExoCAD here. Yeah, you can keep playing. Yeah, that's fine. That's right. Yeah. So yeah, just defining that emergence profile, choosing the shape of the tooth, and now we're basically changing the shape of the abutment. So we're not milling yet, right? But this is all stuff that you can do in your own practices, depending on the mill that you have, okay? You have a craft, it's fine. I will be using a craft to mill this. Yeah, you will need, usually for things like this, you will need like a 5-axis mill, wet and dry. Wet to mill the abutment, dry to mill the zirconia on top. So of course we're still in the design phase. It doesn't look quite right, but we're going to change that, okay? We're just basically designing that abutment, changing the shape to however we want it to be. Right? And of course, because we're using ExoCAD, lots of implant libraries, I should say, are already loaded onto that. It's just to give you an idea of what's actually possible in your practice. Okay? So not everyone will want to do things like this, but if you have a machine that's capable, you're doing a lot of implants, you want to start manufacturing things in-house, then by all means, it's a fantastic way of getting return on investment, I should say. So yeah, we're now basically designing that crown. We're going to edit that crown to make it look a bit more natural than what it is right now. Okay, we're going to use these brush tools over here to sculpt that tooth. And that's basically what I'm doing here. Of course, we can change that. It's very over contoured there. But it's starting to look a lot more natural now. Adding a bit more features if you want. Okay. And then after this is done, we can actually start milling this. Okay, and it will be milled in 2 pieces. We will have a pre-milled abutment, and then we'll also have the zirconia pan itself. Of course, this is all going to be screw retained, so we're going to add that screw channel right now. And if you want to do something like this, yourself, as I said, this is a great way of you making use of any potential mill that you have in your practice. I think this is an Austin or strong. Strong, yeah. This is strong. But usually I would use Austin, but for this particular patient, because I didn't place the implant, yeah, it's a Straumann implant. Okay. So now we're actually going to nest our abutment in the milling software. And we're going to, as I said, we're using a pre-milled abutment. So the connection is already pre-milled, and we're just basically milling the top part. So basically the blank will look at like that cylinder, right? And then actually attached to that blank is the connection, the implant connection. So very important that you actually insert the right connection, or right blank, if you're using multiple implant systems in your practice. Making sure everything is nice and level. And this abutment will be milled wet because obviously when we mill metal, it generates a lot of heat. So yes, this will be milled wet. Making sure all our different parts of the abutment are labeled and categorized, so the screw channel, the connection, all of that stuff. Usually if you design it in exocad or 3 shape, it will kind of like match up automatically. So Hyperdent is basically for the craft. Yeah. So this is now we're actually preparing the crown to be milled. So a different project. So the crown will be milled dry in zirconia, green stake zirconia, so pre-sintering. Yeah, so basically that's going to be a separate milling process. Same mill, but separate process. You can get puck changes. It requires basically a lot more space and a lot more money. But if you're doing a lot, then there are ways to actually, have the whole process automated. But if, depending on your workflow, I think it's great value if you're in a lab and you're doing a lot of this type of stuff. But, as this presentation is really catered towards, us clinicians, let's be realistic, we get most of our money seeing patients, not doing stuff like this. Right? So whether or not a disc changer, is basically what it's called, is worth it, hard to say. It's a lot of space. You're basically doubling the space required, and really, unless you're milling heaps and heaps and heaps, it may not be totally worth it. Yeah, so if you have like an automatic disc changer, yeah, there'll be a module on the software, basically. So yeah, that's the abutment milled. And then of course, afterwards you mill the crown dry. So basically your pre-milled abutments, you could basically, well, Kevin sells some for certain implant systems. There'll be others as well. Like I'm sure Dental Access sells stuff. Which implant system do you use in your practice? Yeah. Oh, they're a very digitally kind of like focused company. So I don't think that's going to be too difficult for you to source something Yeah, yeah. They're very, very digital. Southern, do you sell Southern? Not yet. Yeah. 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 So yeah, these pre-milled abutments they're all manufactured by some sort of like third party. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, as in you want a company to. Oh, right. That I don't know. So someone has to yeah, someone has to design it first. Yeah. 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 It's possible. Absolutely. Or you can do it. You can do. Yeah. 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 Well, it's always you can do as little as possible or as much as possible as you want. Yeah. I mean, if you have a craft, you can do both. But if you're working a lot, seeing patients, it may not be practical. Right. It'll be feasible. It may not be practical from a dollar point of view. Like I enjoy designing and doing a lot of this type of stuff, but yeah, I use a lot of things for this type of thing, implant stuff, XCAD all the way. But you can do it with yeah, it's a few grand at least. Part of it is enjoyment. I really do enjoy the whole technical side of things, but also I'm just so sick of sometimes labs you get jobs back and it's like I also use a very digitally focused implant system called Tri and their matrix system. And I have had so many issues using other labs to kind of like manufacture their crowns because their crowns are actually quite unique. They actually zirconia straight to the implant fixture. So the milling has to be very, very precise. And all the parameters have to be followed to a T. And I just got sick of relying on other people. And when I started doing it myself, like all my prosthetic failures almost like disappeared instantly. So part of it is also, and part of the advantages of not just milling, but just manufacturing in-house is that you can keep track of what's going on. Yeah, direct to fixture. Pardon? Yeah, so there's a screw. Yeah, it's all screwed in, but but there's no button. Yes, correct. But I mean that's a whole different story. But yeah, it's quite unique in the sense of that. Yeah. Yes, cheap, especially if you do all in four. No more like you're basically four screws for an all in four. That's it. No multi-unit abutments. No, none of those. Yeah, yeah, none of those screws. Yeah, yeah. But anyway, let's talk about investment. Okay. We all have to be practical. We're all private practitioners here. And I have this slide on pretty much all of my presentations. We're private practitioners. At the end of the day, we all want to be good dentists, good for our patients, good for ourselves. But we can't be good if we're not making a profit, full stop. End of story, right? So whenever we're investing in anything, so in this case, we're talking about mills, a decision, tree has to be followed, right? I like to think that you need three things when considering investing in hardware. You want first of all, you're going to want to have it, right? You're going to want to have a new mill. If you don't want it, don't get it. So do you need same day dentistry or same appointment dentistry? That will affect the choices, right? What type of services or applications you want to provide to your patients. And of course, is it fun to use, right? Because if it's not fun to use, guess what? You're not going to use it. That also means that whatever program or software that you're using, whatever computer you're using, like you have to invest in it because a fast computer, a capable computer will mean that you'll be waiting less time for things to load. There'll be less lag, less glitches and errors. You just want the whole process to be nice and seamless, right? Especially as dentists, we're so laser focused seeing our patients, and then sometimes we're doing a composite and then the nurse drops something or something happens, right? And then our our mindset changes. We get frustrated, right? So the same thing when we're dealing with designing and fabricating these things. We want the whole workflow to be nice and seamless, because when we encounter a problem, it sets us off a little bit. Feasibility, all right. Now we're all in, well, some of the attendees will be interstate, but most of us are in Sydney. Space, real estate is damn expensive in Sydney, and you may not have space available for a certain mill, right? Really important, if you are investing in a mill, actually do the measurements. Go see the unit. ADX is next year. I'll be there. Kevin will be there. Actually see the mills in person and do the measurements. Right? Learning curve, of course, is very important. Is it feasible for you to learn, and you and your team, because it won't be just you, it'll be your team as well, to learn all the ropes. And of course, time, right? Time is really important. As I said, I do a lot of my design work outside of, clinical hours because I enjoy it, but some people would rather, spend time with their family or spend time walking the dog or doing something else, which is fine. But, we only have 24 hours in a day, 365 days in a year. So is it feasible for you to actually incorporate this into your practice? And finally, I keep on harping profitability, right? You can't just talk about the initial costs. Of course, mills are expensive. You're going to be looking at, at least 50K plus. Some of these mills can be more than 200K sometimes. So yeah, it's not just the initial cost, it's also your ongoing costs. Your tools, your polishers, your materials, zirconia, Emax, all your discs and pucks, all of that stuff, that all costs money. And of course, your chairside time. Because as I said at the start, as dentists, as pretty much all of us are here, we bill the most when we're actually seeing patients, not when we're doing technical work. Right, so brief summary on dental mills. I know some of you already have mills, some of you don't, and you may be thinking about investing in one. But basically, mills are, they've been out in the market for so long. How they work is basically you have a blank, right, a block, and then you essentially have tools that sculpt that block into the shape that you want. In a nutshell, all mills work the same that way. So the great thing about mills is that they've been in the dental industry for ages, great materials out there, lots of long-term success, plenty of materials out there, all right? Of course, CEREC is very popular out there, but, you've got other mills and other systems that are available now, which are certainly worth considering. With all mills as well, there's two types of milling technique, right? One is milling wet, so that's your glass ceramics like lithium disilicate, Emax, your metals, sometimes your PMMA, and then you can mill dry, which is basically your zirconias, your composites. PMMA can be milled dry, some of them can be milled dry. It just depends on the manufacturer, right? So two different types of milling. You generally don't want to cross the streams and mill wet things and dry things on the same mill, but there are exceptions. A lot of mills out there these days, like Craft, you can do both, and you can do both very predictably long term. Some of the older mills, they generally would separate dry and wet milling. Like the roller mills, they're generally either wet or either dry. But some of these newer mills, you can actually do both. Depends on the manufacturer. It really depends. Some composites will be dry, some composites will be wet. Yeah, just like PMMA. Yeah, some will be dry, some will be wet. Right, and then you have different, axes, I should say, or basically how many axes your mill can actually work, right? And in dentistry, they either come in two forms, either 4-axis or 5-axis. Right? Don't be fooled by any companies that say, oh, my mill is a 5-axis, it can mill better anatomy. Not totally correct, okay? Actually, what 5-axis mills can do is actually mill different types of anatomies. So they can mill angulated screw channels better. Well, much more predictably. You can angle, all these different, undercuts and things like that a lot better compared to a 4-axis mill, because you have an extra axis which your tools can access to. right? So particularly important for your, angulated screw channels, your implant restorations, anything with a screw channel, okay? Then you generally want to have some sort of 5-axis mill. Long span bridges, because there's so many teeth involved, so many different axes, then you definitely want to have some sort of 5-axis mill. Anything up to 3 units, like a single unit, a crown, bridges up to 3 units, they can be comfortably done, with a 4-axis mill. So if budget is your issue, you can just simply get a 4-axis mill, but you just have to be aware that you may be limited by the things that you can mill. Right? So yeah, the anatomy may not be completely different. Okay, that's actually more, I would say, more related to your milling strategy. Yeah, and your tools. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. And also your tools as well. Like sometimes your smallest tool diameter would be what, 0.5, 0.6? Yeah, 0.6 millimeters. So you can have beautiful anatomy, all these little grooves and things like that on your design software. It ain't gonna mill, right? If the smallest diameter of your burr is 0.6 millimeters, okay? Printing is a different issue. Right. So advantages of milling. Milling is great. I love printers, but mills are great. I have so many printers, but I still decided to invest in a mill or mills. I have multiple mills actually. So yeah, milling. We know it works. It's precise. It's accurate. All right. Because it's been in our market for so long, we know these materials will work. They're safe to handle. You can hold a puck in or block in your bare hand. You're not going to it's not going to kill you, right? Whereas with 3D printing, some of these resins, you have to wear gloves, you have to wear masks. There's a whole thing on safely using 3D printable resins. Just like when we're using composite resin, we don't put composite resin on our bare skin, right? It's exactly the same. Whereas, for mills, no issue. You can handle it with your bare hands. And of course, because these materials have been in the market, generally we've kind of reached a stage where we've got some really, really strong materials. Okay, zirconia, of course, Emax when bonded, metals. So of course, this is one of my turn that off. One of my crowns for the trimatrix system is a very unique connection. It's completely round because you can't really mill very straight corners in a mill. So yeah, the connection is completely round, and this is kind of like an anti-rotation groove in the center. And this was milled on the Craft 5X. Okay, so you can get some really nice results. And of course, this is green state. Once it's it's fully sintered, and then we polish it, and yeah, really nice. What do you mean? Direct to fixture, basically any indications. Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Yep. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, I'll repeat the question. So a question was asked, with regards to this particular restoration, whether there were any limitations. Is it? Um, yeah, 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 yeah. Screw loosening. To be honest, in my experience with these type of restorations or these crowns, I actually haven't experienced screw loosening, actually. What I have experienced is if the crown was not made correctly, it will actually snap or break. Yes, yes. Which is why doing something like this, it works, but only if you have full control of the situation. If you don't, then I would say, oh, be careful. I would be very careful. I'm recommending it. The reason I feel that, especially, and things have changed since it was initially released. Like they've changed some of the design parameters. So actually, there's quite a lot of you use actually a 10mm screw. So actually around here where the connection is, of course, besides the connection, the zirconia is actually quite thick, right? So because you're actually using a longer screw, so it's actually sitting higher up towards the orifice. And I've experienced much less prosthetic fractures after that. But as for, screw loosening, I haven't really experienced it with this particular system. I have absolutely experienced it with screw retain, the traditional abutment zirconia. I've absolutely experienced that. But actually with the trimatrix system, surprisingly, I haven't actually experienced that much screw loosening. But let's be fair. Screw loosening is an easy thing to fix, whereas a prosthetic fracture of a crown like this is not so pleasant for anyone, right? Yeah, it's a bigger issue, right? But thankfully, as I said, after I started controlling my own fabrication, honestly, I haven't had any fractures. Yeah, which basically goes to show, like, if you're doing something like this, then there's no shortcuts. Like, you have to follow, certain instructions to a T. Yeah. Right. So the not so good stuff about mills, right? Because there's no perfect solution. Basically, mills are expensive. Full setup can be more than 70, 80, 90 grand sometimes, or even more. Yeah, so very expensive setup and initial costs, and it occupies a lot of space, right? Because you need the mill, you need furnaces if you're milling Emax, zirconia. You need a vacuum pump to suck out any dusts, and of course you need compressed air. Thankfully, some of these new modern mills, like the Crafts, the compressor is actually self-contained, which is actually why I got the Craft, because you just plug it into power. That's it. Okay, I don't need to draw compressed air to a different room. Okay, whereas like Roland, yeah, you need to draw a line out from your compressor to your mill. Okay. VHF, the new VHF mills, the compressor is actually within the unit as well. So VHF is also, I mean, I don't own one, but from what I've been told, they're actually really nice to use too. Because, as I said, you just basically plug into power, bang, off you go. Of course, ongoing costs, because there's a lot of movement. You got multiple tools moving, the disc is moving, or the block holder's moving, lots of moving parts. When we have movement, we have friction, right? So these machines need to be serviced regularly, ideally every 6 months, yeah? And then, yeah, lots of moving parts, so lots of wear and tear, okay? Especially if you're milling a lot. And of course, some of these milled materials that we'll go through, they need a separate or an additional firing stage, right, to achieve the qualities or the properties that we want. Very common, chipping, right? We don't have this issue in 3D printing, but often if things aren't calibrated right, or your milling strategy is not quite right, or there's some sort of vibration or something's loose in the machine, you can get chipping at the margins. Of course, especially if you're dealing with, very fine milling, like these, feather light margins that some people mill for zirconia, very common, you experience chipping. And of course, anatomy issues or morphology issues, angulated screw channels in general, long span bridges where you have different paths of insertion, then those are going to be issues for mills to handle sometimes. So it's not perfect. Okay, so what can we mill? Okay, we're going to go through a whole list of things that we can mill, and there's a lot. At the top right, at that 1 o'clock position, that is basically a splint. Okay, so you can mill splints, and good, yeah. But of course, oh, jeez, there we go. But how many splints can you fit in that puck? Maybe a second one if you're lucky, right? At this 3 o'clock position, zirconia, very common. Okay, mill zirconia is really, really popular these days in Europe, in the US, in Australia, really, really popular. Gone are the days where zirconia would be avoided because of its aesthetics. You can actually get some really nice translucent zirconias out there in the market. I use Everest, but there's so many different options out there. Of course, we can mill crowns. It's 4 o'clock position or 5 o'clock position. Then here's on the about 7 o'clock position, some surgical guides. You can mill surgical guides. And this is a metal blank as well. So you can actually mill metal as well. But yeah, bars, dentures, a lot of things that we can mill. Okay, a lot of things. So let's go one by one, all these different applications. Okay, splints. Okay, why should we mill a splint? I don't know how many of you actually have a 3D printer, but I 3D print all my splints. But if you have a mill and you want to mill a splint, yeah, you can do it. Right. So why would you want to mill a splint? Milled splints tend to be a bit rigid. Okay, they're they're of course monolithic. They come in the one material, and they're generally not repairable as well. Right. It's quite easy to handle. As I said, millable materials are generally very, very safe to handle with your bare hands. Right. Just hold it. You hold it. No gloves needed. Just chuck it in. Right. Very, very safe to use. And of course, when you mill something like this, there's not much polishing required. Okay, but disadvantages: splints probably can fit maybe 1 or 2 pucks, 1 or 2 splints per puck if you're lucky, and if you nest it well. All right, so that's not too much bang for your buck. If each of these pucks or discs costs about $100, okay, per puck or per disc, plus GST. So then basically your material cost of your splint is about 50 Australian dollars. So there's a lot of wastage with something like this. But I mean, very easy to polish. Okay. So if you want to mill the splints, you can, right? Nowadays, the labs will actually give you a choice. They'll actually give you a choice. Like this is actually from Avant Dental Lab, right? This table is just simplified, all right? And you can actually choose which of these different options you want. So you can take a screenshot, you can take a photo. It's just the different applications for different types of splints, okay? And we're gonna go through it, right? Our traditional splint, hard acrylic, okay? Hard acrylic is heat processed acrylic, all right? Of course, they're all of these mainly, used for bruxism and TMD, but because they're quite rigid, they're not super comfortable, to be honest. And if you have porcelain veneers and things like that, sometimes you just want a bit of flexibility, a bit of bounce, right? So that's why generally they don't, Avant doesn't recommend that you use a hard splint if you have porcelain veneers around the place. Okay. I would say that the ease of fit is a bit hard, right? And they're not the most comfortable things. But because it's acrylic, if you have acrylic in your own little labs, you can repair them. They're very easy to repair, and they last for ages, right? They look yucky, but they last for ages. Okay, milled splints. Okay, hard acrylic once again, right? And they're digitally designed. Once again, they're not really, because of their rigidity, not really recommended for patients who have, veneers and thin restorations like that. Very similar to these traditional splints, okay? So not terribly comfortable because of their rigidity, not easily repairable as well. But hard splint that is milled, probably cheaper than something made manually. Then you have your hard soft, all right, where you have 2 layers. You have something hard on the exterior, and then you have a softer layer inside, one of those bilaminar splits, right? Very expensive because there's more lab work involved, but of course more comfortable, and you can't really repair them. You can probably repair the external part of it, but the internal soft lining, no, you can't repair that, okay? But because of their bounce, their flexibility, you can use them. They're very suitable and very nice for patients. And if they have, veneers, then of course you can use a hard soft splint. And then of course your 3D printed splints. They call them soft. Like if you ever hold a 3D printed splint, we may have one lying around. They're not actually that soft. It's a misnomer, okay? They're not like mouthguard softs, but they do have a bit of bounce because when you heat them to about 30, 35 degrees, they'll actually, you can actually flex them a little bit. So lots of great materials out there. Key Splint Softs, Night Guard Flex if you're using a sprint ray system. Voca has one as well. They're all 3D printed. Okay, and they're very easy to fit because if they're a bit tight, put it in kind of like water, hot water for about 10 seconds and then insert it. It'll fit in straight away. And then basically, yeah, very good for bruxism. The only thing that I would say is that you need a minimum thickness of about 2 millimeters for 3D printed splints. Anything less, they're going to break within 2 years. So you need a certain thickness for these guys. You can't repair them, you just reprint it. And in fact, it kind of is a bit of a business model for me. I actually give my patients 2 splints. And I basically tell my, I sell the second splint at 50% off. Right? So basically the patient leaves with 2 splints. And if one of them breaks, there's no downtime. And because it's all digitally stored, it's all stored on software. If they happen to lose it, break it, whatever, just reprint it. Yeah, very easy. Right. Does it fit? Pardon? Yeah, as long as you can, reprint it and issue it, as quickly as possible, right? So yeah, so if they lose it, like you reprint it, get them in straight away, right? Don't wait for a month. it won't fit. Yeah. And yeah, generally speaking, as long as you have the right amount of thickness for these 3D printed splints, they last quite a long time. Over 2 years, in my experience. But yeah, where it will break is if you're covering the upper second molars, and it will break at that most distal portion because that is the thinnest portion. So yeah, minimum 1.5 2 millimeters thickness. Yep. Oh, do they want to break?
There is
Cost of milling. Yeah.
or and single cost taking on
Yep.
and we don't want
Oh, right. Yeah, that's a big question, right? Um, I would say that it also depends on how many practitioners are using the mill, what you're actually milling as well. If you're if actually the question is how many crowns is she doing? What bridges is her practice churning out every month? Then you can see whether, because they'll be basically converted into, in-house fabrication. That's probably where you need to start off. Generally speaking, you're going to you're going to be wanting to mill at least a few units per week to break even. Yeah, at least. Yeah, yeah. But I mean, of course, if there's multiple chairs, then there's more chance that you can break even. But if it's very hard to break even if you're just like a single chair. But if you got, at least 3 or 4 chairs, or you're doing the milling for multiple practices, like because I'm doing the milling for Marsfield and Parramatta, then actually because I'm basically milling every day, essentially, then it's very easy to break even. Very, very easy. But if you're just like a 1 or 2 chair practice, you may be milling, once in a while, then it's not worth it. So it really depends on, how many people are going to be using it. What's your volume? So no set answer. I don't really have a monetary view value on that. I can't work that out off the top of my head. But yeah, I mean, there probably is a formula out there to find out whether it's worth it or not. But I think we need to find out more about her current situation before we actually determine whether it's worth it to break even or not. Yeah. But like that being said, there are ways to cut your costs. Like instead of, let's say, investing in Exocad or 3Shape, you can use Medit, the Crown app. It's completely free. Design your crowns for free, right? You can use that. You want to pay a bit extra, $4 US, you can use Dentbird AI, AI-based software to design your crowns. That's about $4 US per crown. Yeah. Lots of different other options to kind of like cut your costs. So you can cut your costs on your design. So you don't need to invest on ExoCAD straight away. You can just do things bit by bit. Because I assume most of the people listening in today are general dentists. Look, the bread and butter meat of most general dental practices is still the single unit crown. Still is. That is the most common piece of prosthetic or milled application that we do on a very regular basis. Okay, and that type of small work can be done very cheaply, very cheaply. I'll have a think about it, and then I'll see, per unit crown, how much it actually costs. I'll have a think about it. Yep. Yep. Yeah, I bet. Yep. Yes, you can. Yeah. Oh yeah, splints are probably, even for like we're talking about milling, but but in terms of 3D printing, the best ways to get ROI of your 3D printer, in-house aligners and splints. Very quick. I do everything that you can 3D print, I printed before. So yeah, I do in-house aligners. Yeah, very quick. Yeah. Print the models thermoform. Yeah, and you get your staff to cut. Yeah, don't cut them yourself. Spend ages. Pretty much. Yeah. Oh. I outsource the design, and then because I just don't have time to set it up, and I do modify the plans. Okay, so they give me back a plan which I modify, and then once I'm happy with the plan, I get the STL files. I'll print the models and then thermoform the aligns. No, I use a service called Xplan from Dental Access. So to be frank, the plans that you get from them are pretty rubbish. Pretty rubbish. Xplan, all right. But but that's why you have to modify the plans that you get. Yeah, they're all rubbish, to be honest. Yeah, I know, and they're supposed to be planned by an orthodontist or whoever, but it's not. I don't think so. But yeah, they're not great. So that's why you definitely do have to modify your plans, and then basically the lab fee for an unlimited case, upper and lower, is 150 plus GST. That's why I use them. Because I'm Asian, I'm damn cheap. Yes, and then basically 3D printing is a whole different thing. So per model, you're looking at about $3 to $5, depending on which printer that you use. Your blank as well, is around $3 to $5, and that's why it's a lot of lab work. It's a lot of manual work, so that's why you have to for in-house aligners, you have to train your staff to take some of that load. Yeah. Nah, you cut them out all in one go, right? Because in case the patient doesn't wear them or they lose it. Yeah, do it as you go. So for me, I learned this all the hard way, right? You get all the models and you're like, damn, that's so good. I'll print 30 models in one hit, and then I'll make them all right? And then you find out the patient isn't wearing them for the right amount of time, and then you have to do some sort of rescan and all of that stuff, right? So I always make I would say, yeah, about 5 to 6 pairs at a time, and then I'll see how I go. Yeah, I learned all the hard way. Yeah. The worst thing is that you make all of it and then you see all those dollars go away. Yeah, light cases, absolutely. Those simple relapse cases, yeah, easy. A little bit of alignment just before you do veneers, yeah, perfect. Yeah. All right. This is not working. Oh, okay. Surgical guides. Oh, yeah, go back. Back again. Oh yeah, go to surgical guides. All right, surgical guides. You can mill surgical guides. Honestly, I don't know anyone who mills surgical guides. Do you get a lot of order? Yeah, no. It's yeah. I mean, you can just because you can doesn't mean that you should. But I mean, you can mill surgical guides. The advantages, once again, with all milled materials is that you can handle it very easily. There's no goo or resin, uncured monomers hanging around. It's very clean. And of course, it gets finished off like very crystal clear. Very little polishing required at all. To be honest, I don't even polish my printed surgical guides. So, but depending on how big your guides are, you're probably going to be using 2 to 5 guides per disc or puck. All right. The other thing you have to consider is that if you have these, I'm talking about pucks as in mills, except blocks and pucks, and we'll talk about that later. Ideally, if you are investing in a new mill, get one that can accept discs or pucks. Right? Don't get one that just accepts the small little blocks. Yeah, you want to mill discs. You really do. Yeah, so crystal clear finish. Very, very few materials out there specifically for milled surgical guides. I tried looking for it on Google. I couldn't even find one option, one Australian distributor that was selling, discs for milled surgical guides. Just no one does it. Yeah, it's basically it's just clear PMMA. Yeah, essentially. Yeah. But I mean, yeah. Oh, lots. It's just basically what people use is basically clear PMMA. But I'm not a big fan. But if you want to do it, you can. I think it's also quite tricky to mill surgical guides too. Yeah, because of all the different anatomies, all the internal surface, especially. Yeah, it's not terribly easy to mill surgical guides, but it is possible. Right. Okay. So comparing printed surgical guides and milled surgical guides. You can take a photo of it. There's 2 QR codes that you can scan. Basically, they're both basically references saying that milled and printed surgical guides are both reliable and consistent. The trueness, the precision between both options is more or less similar, not statistically different. All right. But where they differ is basically how they're made. So material cost, wastage, and of course, production time. So yeah, most surgical guides these days are printed because it's much more predictable to do and easier to do as well. Wax, I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I don't think anyone here is going to be milling wax, but it's mainly for dental technicians, for casting, denture frameworks, copings, all that stuff. You can mill it as well. If you want to do it, most of us won't. Right, metals, right. Mainly metal milling still at this stage, it's still for dental technicians. But if you do want to mill your own metals, it is absolutely possible, depending on the mill that you own, right? Denture frameworks, of course, bars, copings. You can get a disc of cobalt chrome for around 220 bucks. You can get a disc of titanium for about 170 bucks. Yeah. Yeah, I was surprised too, but I assume because that's an alloy, someone has to make it, whereas titanium is just basically a pure metal. So that's what I assume it is. But yeah. So there's also different. Yeah, there's also different. Yeah, of course. Like this is just average. Like I've just basically looked and average blank is around that amount. And of course, if you get a bigger block, of course, it's going to be more expensive. What I also do is because gold is so damn expensive these days, I'm actually, requesting, because I don't really metal mill too much, but I'm actually requested milled titanium crowns because it's cheaper, because gold is bloody expensive. So if you're looking for like a metallic crown posteriorly, then yeah, give it a try. Yeah, it just looks like silver, basically. Yeah. Oh, I would say it will be relatively not as soft as gold, okay? Not as soft, but I mean it's still like, yeah, the parameters or the dimensions that you'd use for your preparations will be still quite similar. Yeah, it is absolutely a thing. Yeah. So yeah, I was like, because actually the way I found out it was I needed to do a gold crown for one of my patients. And this was, I think, post-COVID. So price of gold is astronomical, ridiculous. And then I sent the job off to my technician, and he was like, "Do you want to try a milled titanium crown? It's cheaper, and it's in terms of material properties, it's relatively similar. Like you can still have very, very thin thickness for a lot of strength." So I was like, "Let's try it, right? It works, but tell the patient that it's going to be silver, because sometimes patients, they think, oh, because if they have other gold restorations in the mouth, they think, oh, I'm going to get gold. But tell the patient it's not going to be gold. It's going to be titanium, or it's going to be silver, or some different color, right? But it works. It absolutely does work. Yeah. Japanese, because in Japan, the insurance company is very archaic. Like their insurance doesn't cover for any like ceramic crowns, but they will cover for your metal onlays and inlays. So we've all seen some of these patients from Japan. Like it's impossible to like drill out these dam restorations. Yeah, there's basically some sort of titanium inside. Yeah, works. Yeah, yeah. So it works. Yeah, give it a shot. Like, actually, give it a shot. Yeah, you can mill titanium bars as well. Yeah, 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 yeah. Of course, as I showed at the start, you can mill these pre-milled abutments as well. Okay, milled restorations. This is the meat of today's talk. Right. So this is actually edited. This slide is actually edited from one of my friends in the US, Dr. Stephen Shao, who's actually a key opinion leader for Sprint Ray, so a 3D printing company. But yeah, I'm very close to him. And basically in dentistry, we have 3 different types of materials that we generally use. We use metals, right? Gold, titanium. We have polymers as well, like your PMMA, your acrylics. And then, of course, you have your ceramics, your emacs, your zirconia, so right? They all have different properties, okay? And they have, good points, bad points. When we talk about composites, they kind of have borrow aspects of these different materials. So they borrow different properties or different, characteristics of these different, bits of metal, bits of ceramic, bits of polymer. And that's why they're called composite, because they're combinations of things. And as I said, each of them have, I won't go in terrible detail, but each of them have their strengths and weaknesses, okay, and their indications as well. So, fired restorations versus non-fired restorations. Right? Advantages of fired restorations. We're talking about emacs, zirconia, right? Advantages is that they are very strong once they're fully processed. Very, very strong. But they have a separate step, a firing step. You have a furnace, of course, that is required. And usually you will need more than one furnace, because you'll probably have one crystallization or sintering furnace. And then you'll also have one for your staining. Okay. So yeah, great materials, but there's a separate step involved. Some materials have speed settings where let's say you can do the same appointment or same day zirconia. And of course, emacs, you can do it same appointments. But that depends on the manufacturer, that depends on your setup, right? Your non-fired restorations, generally, they're weaker, right? But the advantage is that there's no firing involved. We don't need to heat something up to 850 degrees Celsius and then wait for it to cool down. It's all ready to go once it's milled. you can just simply basically polish it, glaze it, characterize it, and then cement it in. So PMMA. Generally, it's kind of like more of a temporary or long-term provisional material, but we can mill dentures. This particular product, iVersion from Ivoclar, not all mills can handle this particular blank, but yeah, you can use it for long-term or definitive dentures, denture bases and teeth. In this particular product, you can actually the teeth and the denture base, they're all milled in the one block, all right, or the one disc. And PMA, very natural appearance. They come in multi-layer shades, they look very natural. They can be polished really nicely. Great materials, but you just have to understand that depending on the indication that you're using it for, it may not be a long-term solution. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it isn't. I don't do this, all right? So, I don't see enough full upper full lower patients to really consider it worth it for me. Also, you can't do it on all mills. I'm pretty sure you can do it. I think there's a VHF mill that you can do iVersion, and then of course the program mill or the Ivoclar mills you can do. Yeah, correct. Yeah. So yeah, they're very popular. I mean, if you do a lot of this type of work, then fine, go for it. But yeah, I mean, yeah. Yeah, oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, this is just stock images from there, it will always look good here. The reality is not so easy. Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. I wouldn't be surprised. Okay, hybrids. Right. Controversial, depending on which side you stand on. They can be definitive restorations, but also these long-term provisional restorations as well. Generally for your single units, on inlays, onlays, veneers, some of them have indications for crowns. Some of them can be milled dry. A lot of them are milled wet, right? And generally I would mill wet. I think you get a better finish when you mill wet. They look very, very nice. We got examples, Serasmart 270, Vita Anamic is another one. You just can't, I guess, I would never overpromise your patients with these type of materials. You just have to respect the material and not be too ambitious with these type of materials. They do have a place in our ornamentarium, but I wouldn't use it for all particular cases. I think for onlays and inlays, yeah, they actually work quite well. But some of these full coverage situations, especially in the posterior part of the mouth, I'm still a bit, I'm not convinced completely yet. Yeah, so and that some practices do actually use these types of materials instead of like Emax for the convenience that you don't need to polish it or you don't need to fire it. Yeah, I would charge it. I would charge less. It'll be cheaper. Yeah, I would. I don't know about other practices, but I wouldn't charge. I wouldn't feel comfortable charging as much. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because it's a crystalline structure for Emax. So yeah, chipping. Ah, so yeah. I mean, I personally would like I guess my specialty is actually 3D printed restorations. So that's why I don't really do too much of this, to be perfectly honest, because I would just say I'll just 3D print it. Good question. We would say around right now in Australia, the stuff that we have access to around 150 to 180. The newer materials would be 180 to 220. It's getting better and better. So yeah, but it's still it's still kind of like that dentine type of strength, that composite type of strength. Yeah, they can add lots of ceramics in there, and we will get there at some point. But that's a whole topic for a different day. Yeah. So Ceramco, Crown Tech. Yeah, I do. I use a lot of that. I am actually one of their KOLs, but yeah, I do a lot of that, but I'm very case selective. Yeah, look, all the mistakes, all the screw ups that you can see in 3D printed restorations, I've done it before. All the different, uh, when these materials were first released, to be honest, even the manufacturers had no idea what they were doing. They didn't know how to wash them right. They didn't know that you'd have to change certain parameters in terms of the design. It's still a developing field. I think it's going to get better and better with time, but very, very case selective. Yeah. Most of them don't change. As long as you're curing them, so with 3D printed materials, as long as you're curing them in some sort of validated curing unit, you're following the instructions. Generally, they're quite color stable. But fluoresce, which ones are you using? Oh, TenSmart. Yeah, yeah, TenSmart. I honestly, I don't know why GC has that product. Like it prints very predictably on the Asiga, very, very predictable. But it's just kind of like they've never released anything 3D printer related, and then they just have this temporary material out of nowhere. It's cheap. Yeah, it's cheap. It's a good temporary, but yeah, because it's GC. But I mean, well, it's yeah. I mean, it's 3D printing is cheap in general, but GC Temp Smart compared to some of the newer restored printed resins is actually quite cheap and affordable in comparison. But Ceramco is very expensive. Like a small bottle is like 1,200 or 1,500 for like a bottle like that big. Yeah, but of course you can print hundreds of crowns with that. But yeah, it's expensive. Yeah, but yeah, I think yeah. Oh, that's it. Like case selection. Yeah. So I actually a lot of when I print a restoration, I'm considering it more or less a definitive. Now I tell my patients they're gonna have to replace it at some point. Right. It's gonna break, like just like a filling will break at some point. Okay. These materials, they're still, the same strength as more composite, right? So oh, oh they can last if in the right cases. Like I've been doing it since they were first released in Australia, which is well, pre-COVID, and most of my cases are still there. So they can last years. So yeah, I do. I charge like it's 50% less basically. Yeah, and then especially like to do it like one single unit, not really worth your time. But if you're doing all like a number of restorations in one hit, yeah, then that it's actually becoming a lot more, I guess, cost effective. Yeah, if you trust the material, yeah, the materials are getting better and better these days. Actually, what? Yeah, so yeah, I mean that's I everyone has different experiences. I think I printed temp smart temp print before, GC temp print. I think it's fine as a temporary material, but I'm not a terribly big fan of it, to be honest. Yeah, yeah. But as a temporary material, it's fine. But I don't know how. Yeah, so the color. So they're very like you can glaze it, characterize it, but the problem now, and I'll be talking about it in February at the 3D printing in dentistry conference, is that right? We're kind of like in we're moving two steps forward, but kind of like one step back at the same time with these types of materials. Basically, we're finding that, oh, we can print these, but then we find out there's a problem, right? When you glaze and characterize these guys, okay, whether it's, Vita Nanic or whether it's a printed hybrid, the glaze actually wears off. Right? After 12 to 18 months, it's gone, all right, or partially gone. Yeah, yeah. So you either recharacterize it, all right, or reglaze it, which is work, or they look pretty mediocre after a period of time. Yeah. So I have a couple of cases where it's like anterior veneers, printed resin. They look very flat. Okay, they look very flat. So they do need to. They are actually develop, especially Sprint Rays, developing a really nice, aesthetic resin that can be used anteriorly, and they're developing their own staining and glazing kits that can last a period of time. But currently what we have is that we're discovering all these problems on the way. So the actual development of 3D printed restorations is moving too fast, in my opinion. But that's where the market is heading. Yeah. But yeah. If you're talking about a single unit, a single crown versus a single, printed and single crown milled, the total work time probably be roughly the same. Okay, maybe the mill might have a slight edge by about 5-10 minutes, which may not sound like a lot, but when the patient is in the chair, 5-10 minutes is a long time, right? But once you start having multiple units being done at the same time, bang, that's where you get your time saving, because you can print 2 crowns or 5 crowns same time. Whereas milling, it's all one by one. Yeah. Yeah. Right, so that's your reinforced PMA. Yeah, I actually wanted to talk about this. Now, I haven't used this product. I will soon, but it just goes to show that, this materials are always constantly being developed. Graphene is a very interesting compound. It has a very high elastic modulus, so lots of flexibility, a lot of resistance to elastic deformation. So actually, a lot of companies are investigating graphene being incorporated into our mill materials. So this is a product called Graphene Nano, which is actually a graphene reinforced PMMA. So in terms of your flexural strength, it's still only about 150, but it actually absorbs a lot of shock a lot better than some of your other materials out there in the market. This QR code is actually a link to an article that actually talks about graphene in particular and the potential advantages and disadvantages of incorporating this particular compound in our restorative materials. It's not just milled materials. In printed materials, I think there was a study done by Western UWA, actually. They added graphene to NextDent Crown and Bridge microfiber MFH, which is a printed restorative resin. And they actually found that when they added, I think, about 0.2% of graphene to that particular mixture, it improved the flexural strength, the elastic, the deformation, the resistance to elastic deformation. So really interesting material to kind of like keep an eye on. Yeah, and I certainly will be probably trying this out for some of my implant work, because when you're dealing with, especially in my situation, a restoration direct fixture, you do want to have a bit of bounce and flexibility. Whereas if you're putting zirconia straight to titanium, there is no flexibility at all. So yeah, something to keep an eye on. But yeah, it's interesting, really interesting. Of course, the advantage is that you don't need to fire this. Yeah. Yeah, so look, the design is as in like the screw. Actually, these days they actually recommend the same screw. Same screw. When they first released, there was a separate PMMA screw for the Trimatrix. It was really fat, and when it was that big, it actually made your restoration a bit thinner at certain sections, and that's where they were finding that there were a lot of fractures. So actually, they discovered that you actually can use the same screw for zirconia. Yeah. Preload. Yeah. 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 Yes. Yes, that's it. It bounces. Yeah. Whether it's a good thing or bad thing, we don't really, know yet for sure, 100%. But I guess I'll find out. I'll find out, so you guys don't need to find out. Yeah. Yes. Graphene. As I was talking about, it's got a high, weight to resistance ratio. It's very flexible. But of course, we need to do a bit more research, and QR code there for another article if you want to look, more into this. But yeah, it's really exciting. Right, glass ceramics, bread and butter. Right, this is Rosetta. Definitive type of material, of course. Emax, single unit restorations, onlays, inlays, bridges, 3 units. Veneers, Of course, you're going to mill these wet. They look very, very nice once fully processed. Lots of shades possible. They come in multiple, color layers and highly translucent. Very nice material. When fully bonded, you can achieve really, quite strong, values, 500 to 700 MPa. And there's plenty of stuff in the market. Of course, I've got Rosetta here. There's Amber Mill, Tessera, Ultra Duo. So many different options out there, cheap and expensive. Yeah. Question. Yep. Okay. So same day, yeah, for sure. Like that's not a problem. I think it will be still slower compared to CEREC. Like to mill a single Emax crown or Rosetta, it's going to take about 20 to 25 minutes, right? That's the milling time. And then you're going to have to chuck it in your furnace. That's going to be another, what, 20, 15 minutes? Yeah. But you have to wait for it to cool. Like you can't handle it once it's, comes out. Yeah. So same day, possible? Absolutely. Yeah. Not a. Look, my practices, personally, if you're starting out, I wouldn't promise same day. It really depends on your client base. Both my practices have never, I guess, been built on same day applications, so I don't really need to promise that. But if you want to introduce that into your practice, then everyone has to be on board, right? Yeah, because everyone has like from from printing, designing, the whole workflow has to be, everyone has to be trained and know what they're going to, do. And probably some of the tasks have to be delegated to certain members of staff. So I personally, I guess I don't need to worry about that. And I can absolutely do these someday, 100%. Oh yeah, so yeah, basically a week turnaround. Yeah, week turnaround. Yeah, that gives me plenty enough time to find out if I've screwed something up. Then there's enough time to talk to Kevin or talk to someone to find out what's going on, and then fix it and issue. Yeah, 7 days. Yeah. Basically with CEREC, you got bursts from two different angles, yeah, basically, and that's why it's so fast, right? Because your block is in the center and it's milling from both sides. That's why it's so quick. Oh, I think mill CEREC's 10, 15 minutes. Yeah, right. Yeah, it's only 15 minutes, but yeah, only 10, 10 minutes, but it's like, patience in the chair, 10 minutes waiting for, something, depending on the situation, can be a long time. Yeah, design time, like, yeah. Yes, the fine time will be the same, basically. And I think one of my next slides is on CEREC. And if you are seriously considering doing something like this, I would say don't just, everyone focuses on CEREC because of the brand name. And no, don't get me wrong, it's a great product, right? But there are a lot of more affordable options out there these days that you definitely would want to consider before you invest in CEREC, because the whole CEREC setup can be what, 200K sometimes? Yeah. Whereas I with the Craft 5X, I even got, I think I got Exocad with it as well. No, Exocad together, and then the milling software and the implant bundle with that, the implant software with that. Yeah, it was like less than 100 grand. Yeah, so that's a lot of value. As I said, I'm not saying that CEREC is good because it's been in the market. The software is very easy. That's where you get your value from, basically. It's really, anyone can use it. To be honest, for single units, there are so many great options out there that don't cost an arm and a leg that I think yeah. I mean, yeah, same here. Yeah. Yeah, and you can delegate as well. It's you don't need to design. It's so foolproof that you can even get your staff to design it. Yeah. To be honest, I actually do a lot of the design myself. I use what we call dead time, where it's in between patients, nothing's really been done. I finish my notes. Oh, I'm going to quickly design something in 10, 15 minutes. That's what I call my dead time. Yeah, because you're not doing anything at that time. Yeah. But yeah, I enjoy it. Yeah. But not everyone does. Not everyone does. Yeah. Yeah. True. Yeah, it's hmm, I don't know, they probably have a pattern on it. Yeah, some other mills do have it. But the problem also is if you have two burrs from either side, then your blank in the center can't move as well as much. Yeah. Yeah. Mm, yeah.
So basically, they compare arm general I would say, I always say 7 or 8 than 7.
Yeah. But of course, everyone has an opinion. You go to someone who teaches CEREC, they'll also say they'll say something different. Okay. We all have different, perspectives, and a lot of it is also user experience and how you're prepping, how you're retracting, all that, counts. But yeah, look, it's definitely worth investigating different options. Don't just think, oh, CEREC, I'm going to get a CEREC. There's great value options out there in the market. Not saying that CEREC's a bad product. I, personally never used it myself, so I can't judge. But yeah, some really great options out there. Really great options. Not just about the craft. I mean, I love my craft, but VHF, other systems out there. Yeah, so it's a lot. That's why if you're milling in-house, you should try, I always stress, you should try get a mill that can mill discs because some mills can't. So because a block of one of these would be sometimes about 30 to 50 Australian dollars per block. Whereas a whole, puck or disc like that is about 250, 300. Yeah, yeah. But don't drop it. Yeah. I've done it. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you can mill in it because once you fire it, it'll just disappear. Yeah. 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 I mean, it'll be all removed at some point. Yeah. Nah, that's just their branding, but yeah. Which is also leads to a good point when you do have discs like this, when you're usually going to be, of course, you're going to be reusing it across multiple patients. Okay, make sure you mark, have some sort of mark, so that you can orientate it the right way. Again, yeah, like use a permanent marker, just mark it in some way. Yeah. It doesn't. It doesn't. Yeah. So you have to orientate it the right way. Yeah. Yeah. So usually there'll be markers. Yeah. On the craft there'll be two arrows or lines as reference points. Then yeah, you should kind of make a physical mark on your disc. Yeah. Okay. So when you load this or like something like this, you load a blank, right? And you save that file as a blank, so multiple, objects are milled onto that particular blank, all right? It'll actually automatically, once you save that file and reopen it, it will not let you mill in that area. Yeah, it won't. Mm, yeah. That's why you just be like, don't drop it. Like, yeah, like it, no, these blocks are actually not too bad. It's zirconia that is fragile. Yeah, zirconia, you just have to be a bit careful. I mean, you can do something like this for zirconia. The only thing is that these thin areas in between each of these restorations, like if you're not too careful, you can crack them or break them. Or the worst thing is that you'll crack it at the edge. right? I've actually cracked it, right at the edge, like remove the whole third. I was chief and I was like, oh god damn it, I reused the same thing, right? And it still worked. Like I still screwed it on, like I still clamped it on, and it still held on. So I still managed to salvage the discs. I'm not saying that you should, but you should be careful. But yeah, yeah, yeah. They also have different kind of like products in their lineup, but yeah, it will be comparable to Emacs. Korea, yeah, yeah, great. Yeah, so mill like pucks, like lithium disilicate pucks, still not so common. You're mainly milling blocks like this. I just included it here. Actually, I was surprised that even had a disc like this. But yeah, not Emacs. And let me think. I think IMS has one potentially. I think they're trying to work out one. And of course this Rosetta has one, but it's not mainstream, not right now. It's actually it's the tooling. You actually like you wear away your tools a lot faster doing something like this. Yeah. So like you basically need to replace your tools a lot faster. For Big Lab or like zirconia, no issues, because when you mill zirconia, it's soft, right? So you get, I would never mill zirconia in a block, full stop. It's just not like, yeah. 10 minutes, yeah, you can. You can do some, yeah, you can, like in terms of like a time saving, yeah. It's hard. This material is actually quite hard. Well, all this what we call blue state. You're basically grinding glass, right? Yeah. Okay.
By the time I missed 10,
sure. Yeah, 10, yeah, it's a lot of time. Yeah. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, so the question was, for those who are listening online, we got this block of lithium disilicate here. Wouldn't it be more, effective, milling it on a block like here, on a disc like this, rather than on individual blocks, right? You can, and of course it will save you time. The problem is that milling what we call blue state lithium disilicate or Emacs or Rosetta or all these similar materials is actually quite hard on your tooling, right? So you'll actually wear away the tooling a lot faster. So generally, that's why, in general, milling these in blocks is not terribly mainstream, because you'll just basically burn through your tools very quickly. I think it's just these individual blocks is just more expensive. Yeah. Yeah. No, go. Yeah. 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 Because with we'll talk about zirconia in a sec, the difference between zirconia and Emacs, but it's quite easy to make a zirconia puck. It's basically pressure formed. You have this zirconia powder, and then you've got binders and additives, and they just basically press it. They press it into a block. Whereas this is a lot harder. This is actually kind of like half crystallized already. But so the actual manufacturing of a lithium disilicate block like this is actually very expensive, comparative to zirconia. Yeah. Oh, just with a high speed and just cut it off. Yeah. Oh yeah, if it's stuff like that's quite a bit of effort, but like this to cut it off here. But zirconia, that's where you have to be careful, because zirconia is soft. You slip, you sneeze. Oh, I have once, I was cutting the sprues off a 5-unit bridge, and just when I was cutting the last one, it landed on my hand, but my hand was at an angle, and then it dropped. It's like, oh, 5-unit bridge all gone. Yeah, yeah. So yeah. But anyway, all right. So for those who are not familiar with CEREC, very established workflow, very easy to use, very easy to delegate. So that's where you get a lot of the value from it. And because so many users exist out there in the world, not just in Australia, but Europe, US, if you run into a problem, there's always going to be someone who can help you out. So that is, that's good. This is a good system, but of course you pay for it. Zirconia, right. Of course, it's a definitive material. You can more or less, mill any sort of fixed restoration, veneer, crown, onlay if you really want, bridges, all sorts of things. These days, zirconia is getting a lot more, translucent. They got these, multi-layered zirconias with very decent translucency that you can use anteriorly, or if you want, you can characterize them with Mio or some sort of ceramic staining kit. I use Mio, Biomic. I use the Vita staining kit as well. So I use a combination of different products. But of course, we know zirconia is very strong, very predictable. Lots of great options out there. Katana. I use Everest a lot because it's very, very cost effective. I think one block 98 by 16 is about 260 millimeter. Yeah, it's pretty much always on sale with Kevin. But yeah, how much? Yeah, and yeah, so 160, and then how many crowns you can mill on? Yeah, basically, yeah. About if you're a bit modest, about a dozen. If you really push it, yeah, 20. Yeah. So really great value. Yeah. Every time you buy one, I get one for free, right? Yeah, that's right. It's very, very cost effective. Everest is, yeah. So that's why I actually use it, because I'm Asian, I like to save up. Yeah. Whereas if you got buy katana from Henry Schein, that's a very, very expensive product. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. Zirconia. All right. So first of all, you have zircon, which is a mineral. And then you purify it, becomes zirconia. And then you have yttrium, basically added. It's a particular product, yttrium added, or compound, I should say, or element, added to the zirconia and basically stabilizes it. And you have these different numbers, 3, 4, 5, Y. Basically, it's relative or concerning this content, this yttrium content. And then three phase or 3Y zirconia is very strong, but very opaque. Looks terrible. That's where we get the idea zirconia looks bad, because the old zirconia is predominantly 3Y zirconia. Then you had your 4Y, your 5Y, and basically 4Y is not as bad looking, not as strong, but better looking. And then of course your 5Y zirconia is a lot more translucent, but you sacrifice the strength. Okay, so suddenly 3Y zirconia would be very, very strong, sometimes more than 1200 MPa. But your 5Y zirconia maybe only 700-800 MPa. Right? As I said, when we make these blanks, they're basically pressed into a mold, right? So you have this zirconia powder, you got these additives and binders. They're basically pressed into a mold, so it's nice and homogeneous. And then they actually heat it up a little bit. They're partially sintered to remove these little binders and additives until you get what we call the typical green state zirconia, that white block. That's zirconia. And then of course, sintering and crystallization, right? What sintering is basically converting a powdered or porous mass like a green state zirconia into solid, right? Without it becoming some sort of liquid, okay? It also, because it's becoming more dense, you actually get some sort of shrinkage, which is why when we deal with zirconia, there's always some sort of what we call shrinkage factor, which is around 20%. So because we're basically packing in the molecules, and so it shrinks, everything comes together by about 20%. But yep, it takes time. You need to heat it for about 1500 to 1600 degrees Celsius. Takes time. Yes, there are speed cycles, but it's not It's not terribly mainstream. Zirconia in the speed cycle is not, super common these days. It will get there, but it's not super common. Crystallization, bit of a different thing, okay? With crystallization, basically it's crystallization, right? We have lithium disilicate crystals forming at around 850 degrees Celsius, right? There's very, very little shrinkage, about 0.2% apparently. So almost negligible, okay? And basically you get these crystals forming, transforming the structure of the actual product. Cool. And of course, pucks or discs versus blocks. I'm a big fan of discs and pucks because it's very cost efficient, but you need a mill that has some sort of disc holder or puck holder, right? A little bit more challenging to nest or use, mount everything in the software because, as some of the attendees here have pointed out, you need to make sure that your disc is orientated like perfectly or as close to perfect as possible. I feel it's actually easier to organize inventory because you actually have less inventory. You basically have, a disc per shade, especially for zirconia, and then, that's really it, okay? But of course, don't drop it, otherwise you lose the whole thing. Blocks really became popular because of CEREC, all right? Not that that's a bad thing, but because of, CEREC is so popular, blocks have become so popular. Very easy to handle, but per unit material cost is, of course, a lot more expensive. You're dealing with a lot of blocks, different sizes of blocks, so your inventory may also be affected as well. Whereas with your discs, you basically, usually it's 98 millimeter, that's your standard disc. And then you have certain thicknesses. I use a 16 millimeter, but you can go 18, 20, 24, as little or as large as you want. But 98 by 16 is generally what I go with. And then finally, what else to consider? When dry milling, basically anything that requires cooling during milling. So your metals, your lithium disilicate, then you're basically milling them wet. Okay, some PMMAs and composites, depending on your manufacturer, they're also milled wet as well. Dry is basically your zirconia, wax. Some PMMAs are milled dry as well. But generally, from a clinic, a chair side, or for a clinic, you're really looking at zirconia. And of course, all the other stuff. Furnaces. I have multiple furnaces. I have a sintering furnace for zirconia. Actually, I have 2 sintering furnaces. Then I have a Vita stain and glaze furnace, which can also handle crystallization as well. Yeah. Question. Yeah. Yeah. The one at the back. Yeah. Yeah. That's yeah, I use it to stain my Zirc and my Emaxes, as well as crystallize my Emax as well. Yeah. For my zirconia. So that I use a proper sintering furnace. So I use 2. I have a Tiger Mini S, that's one of them. And then I also have the Dekima 664i. They're sintering furnaces, yeah. So your small little furnaces, like your Smart Fire, they won't go up to 1600 degrees Celsius, whereas you need a proper sintering furnace for your zirconia. Yeah. Nope. I don't. And so far I've been lucky. No blackouts, brownouts, fuse breakage, all of that. No, I've been lucky. Yeah. So I've been lucky. So, but I'm sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Just read it on. Yeah, it's okay. If for whatever reason with zirconia, yeah, basically, the more you kind of the longer it spends, not just reaching that critical temperature, which is usually around 1500 to 1600, depending on the zirconia, and not, the slower that slope is, as well as the longer you are at that particular temperature, yeah, the more translucent it will be. Strength, look, I don't know what the science is. I'm sure there's always going to be a limit. Like there's probably going to be, I think if you over-sinter something, you'll probably change the characteristics and the look of it. I've never reached that stage, to be honest. Yeah, but look, I'm sure there's something will happen. I just don't really know what that will be.
What's the technology? So when you get zirconia powder form, what you said powder, that's
Sintering, yes. Crystallization. Yes. Yeah.
Is there any damage? Let's say you tried it, not
I think that it will kind of like, I guess, artificially age your zirconia. Some people say, right? Okay, which yeah. So for full arch, you may introduce or like you may risk crack propagation essentially. Yeah, especially for longer arches, which is why when you glaze or characterize a full arch, the settings are actually slightly different to actually if you glaze or characterize a single unit crown, because you need to allow for certain cooling and things like that. Pardon? How often? Oh, purge. Probably not as regularly as I should. Yeah. Not yet. One day I will have to. Yeah, that really, yeah, it really depends on how much you use it. Yeah, and then but basically you have heating elements that create the heat in each furnace, all right? And eventually they will get contaminated, they'll die. And then you'll know because you'll sinter an A3 zirconia and it'll turn gray or dark, or it won't come out the right shade, or become a bit opaque. And then, okay, that's when I know, especially the grayness or the blotching, that's when you know, okay, I need to change my element. So I haven't reached that stage yet, but one day I will have to. No. Yeah. Yeah. So if you and you raise a good point. So just to for the online viewers, I don't know how many are left, but basically, okay, good. Basically, when you can actually pre-color, you can actually color your zirconia in its green state. So I know they will come out, in some sort of color already. When you sinter it, but you can actually modify the color a little bit by using coloring liquids. Okay, most coloring liquids are low pH now, no, not natural pH. Yeah, water-based, yes. And so if you theoretically water-based colorants tend not to damage your heating elements as much, but they still do. So if you're doing a lot of pre-coloring, like technicians will do a lot, then you'll basically need to change your elements probably a lot more regularly. I don't, but yeah, so that's probably why I don't need to change them. So I haven't needed to change them yet, but yeah. 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 So basically, to repeat it so that the online listeners can know what's being said. Sometimes if you have a spare chip or of zirconia, or in between your crowns, you'll have zirconia that you'll never need to use. So you can chuck some of that and run a standard cycle just to kind of like purge some of the buildup that can occur over time. Kind of just like a microwave cleaner, right? You just chuck it in the microwave and run it, right? But in this case, you're chucking zirconia in there to absorb some of those compounds. Yeah, but you don't want your next crown to absorb all of that stuff. You want, a spare piece that you'll just chuck away. Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. It's a sacrifice. It's a sacrifice, right? But yeah. Okay. So furnaces, and of course, some of these cycles do need some sort of vacuum component to it. So that's compressed air. I think with the SmartFire, you can buy its own vacuum pump. Extra, it's an additional. Yeah. All right, so stains and glazes, you may want to characterize some of your stuff. So of course, that's also something extra that you have to consider. Your polishes as well, different polishes for different materials. Okay, so You can get some great polishes. I usually source my polishes from lab companies like Alpha Bond because no one else polishes more than a dental technician, right? So they generally will know what is good to polish different materials. And of course, yeah, other accessories, brushes, holders, screws, a lot of consumables.